You ever get humiliated so hard, the whole city practically hears it echo? Yeah, that was me. My fiancé, Lucas Chen, aka the human icebox who emotionally tortured me for 3 freaking years, straight up proposed to his first love at one of the swankiest high society parties in New York City. Then I went all bold and posted online that I was getting married too, only for him to call me up in the middle of the night like, "I never said I was marrying you. I just let out a soft laugh and said, and I never said you were the groom." A few hours later, a set of pics went viral, blowing up social media and shaking up the entire city. As I slipped into a stunning dress and stood up, my makeup artist couldn't help but gasp, "Miss Bennett, you look absolutely breathtaking in this gown." I gave a quiet thank you. But the second I opened the door, the crowd downstairs started buzzing like a swarm of bees. Through the glitzy golden revolving door, I spotted Lucas Chen, my oh-so-devoted fiancé of 3 years, arriving with a smoking hot woman on his arm. The kicker? Her dress was identical to mine. And tonight's party? Yeah, it was the event of the decade in NYC's elite circle. Every guest was someone big, sharp eyes, sharper tongues, and of course they noticed instantly that my dress was a knockoff. In my 21 years of breathing, I had never dressed up like this before, just to end up as a fancy-looking clown. One of the girls standing beside him was the first to speak. Lucas casually took the other woman's hand and answered, "My girlfriend. But after tonight, she'll be my fiancé." He locked eyes with me, stone cold, and added, "The Bennett family and I already ended the engagement." He wasn't lying. If it weren't for the $500,000 engagement dowry, the Bennetts would have gone bankrupt a long time ago. That money was what kept us living the high life. Lucas dropped to one knee, popped out a ring, and proposed to Vanessa Lynn. She burst into tears and threw herself into his arms, while he wiped her tears, whispered sweet nothings, and kissed her like they were in a freaking rom-com. I just stood there, watching Vanessa Lynn get swarmed by powerful women laughing and chatting like she'd always belonged. After tonight, she wouldn't be some D-list scandal magnate anymore. Nope, she'd be society's newest darling. And me? I'd officially be persona non grata in this shiny coastal city. "Mind if I squeeze past you?" A voice behind me snapped me out of my mental spiral. I turned around to find 2 elegant girls holding trays, staring me down like I was a bug on the wall. I instinctively stepped aside. "Her dress looks so cheap," one of them muttered. "Right? I can't even tell what kind of fabric that is. Touch it and you might break out in hives," the other girl chimed in. "And she still has the audacity to stand here? That's embarrassing." I kept my face blank, walking off to a quiet corner like I hadn't heard a thing, acting all unbothered. Then my phone buzzed. It was my mum calling. I picked up and heard her voice dripping with shame and rage. "Claire Bennett, the Chens wants the engagement cancelled, and you have to return the $250,000 dowry. 3 years and you couldn't even keep a man? You're pathetic. Figure it out yourself." And she hung up. I stared at the screen, my chest tightening like someone was squeezing the life out of me. I could barely breathe. The flashing lights and loud laughter around me? They didn't matter anymore. I just wanted to get the hell out of there. "I heard Mr. Ward Sr. flew back into New York yesterday. Maybe he'll show up tonight," someone whispered. "No way. The man practically never shows up at events like this," another replied. "Fair. Last time he made a public appearance was in that government press clip." I pressed my hand to my chest, trying to keep the stabbing pain down as I fumbled in my bag for meds. A soft noise made them both shut up fast, then they awkwardly drifted away. The pain in my chest twisted tighter, like someone was squeezing my ribs from the inside. This damn tight dress felt like it was choking the air out of me. I kept digging for my medicine, tried unzipping the back just to breathe, but every attempt failed miserably. Earlier today, my mom had me get these fancy new nails done, delicate, perfect and now basically lethal. I tilted my head back, gasping, hair all tangled in my face, lips turning from pale to straight-up grey. Not far away, the party kept raging like nothing was wrong. My ex-fiancé and his new obsession were probably spinning around the dance floor, living it up. And me, I was about to die quietly on the edge of this stupid yacht. "Mr. Ward Sr., would you like to head inside now?" someone called out. Ethan Ward didn't answer, just took a small metal case from his assistant's hand. He pulled out a pale grey cigar, opened a sleek little box, and brushed the tip over some deep brown powder. He raised it to his lips, held out his hand, and his assistant lit it up instantly. Ethan lit the cigar, exhaled cool as ever, and said, "You guys go ahead. I'll finish this one first." With that, he strolled toward the edge of the deck, slow and calm. "Watch the wind, sir," someone warned behind him. The group around him gradually scattered left. This time, Ethan Ward came back to New York with a fire in his eyes, like he was ready to make serious moves. So serious, no one would dare cross him again. Tonight's host had to pull every connection in the book just to get him to show up. He hadn't even planned to come, but after getting ambushed by his family yesterday with non-stop marriage talk, his head was pounding, so he figured, screw it, might as well hit the party. The cigar was only halfway done when Ethan Ward suddenly froze, eyes catching on a frail figure in the distance. He was about to put it out and dip, but then he heard a strange noise coming from the deck, so he turned back slowly. Moonlight spilled over the scene, hitting a small, unsteady silhouette swaying by the railing. Me. I probably looked pale as a ghost, my face twisted in pain under that weak shimmer of light. When I saw the stranger in front of me, I grabbed onto his sleeve like it was the only thing keeping me alive. Survival mode kicked in. I shoved his hand toward my chest with all the strength I had left. My breathing was a mess, my heartbeat totally out of sync. He gave me a look, like he instantly knew what was happening, and dropped to one knee. His long fingers wrapped around my wrist, voice calm but cold. "Where's the zipper?" I couldn't speak, just kept clutching his hand and dragging it toward my chest. Ethan Ward frowned slightly, then pushed my hand away and popped open one of the tiny decorative buttons so I could finally catch my breath. He leaned in, eyes scanning the neckline of my dress. Then, one by one, those sneaky hidden buttons started coming undone under his skillful hands. I could literally feel the pressure easing from my lungs, the tightness melting off me, air rushing in. I took a huge, greedy breath. In all the chaos, I'd forgotten I was wearing a body-hugging dress with nothing underneath but a stick-on bra. Now the whole front of the dress was gaping open, flashing more than I'd ever meant to. It wasn't until a thick men's blazer was gently draped over my shoulders that I snapped back to reality. I bit my lip, flushed red, bowed my head and muttered a quiet, "Thanks." My voice was barely a whisper. "Can you stand?" he asked. I nodded, one hand clutching the jacket, the other grabbing the railing as I slowly pushed myself up. "Want me to call your family? A friend?" he asked again. I quickly shook my head. "No, I just need a minute to rest, that's all." His phone started buzzing. I watched him step away, pick it up and answer. "I said I'll handle the marriage stuff, okay? Chill, I'm not gonna let Grandpa down." There was a hint of pressure in his tone. And with that, he lit up another cigarette. The glow from the lighter flickered across his cold, unreadable face. I suddenly realized this man looked really familiar, like I'd seen him somewhere before. Right then, he turned his head. Our eyes locked, and I immediately dropped my gaze like a guilty kid. He ended the call and walked over, the faint smell of smoke trailing behind him, which made me cough a little. He instantly put the cigarette out and apologized. "Sorry." He pointed to the blazer still wrapped around me. "Just give it back to the staff later." My cheeks flamed red as I nodded quickly, mumbling, "Okay." His eyes drifted down to my hand, still gripping the edge of his jacket like my life depended on it. Underneath, all I had on was a thin stick-on bra, and my skin was brushing the soft inner lining. It felt dangerously intimate, even if no one else knew it. Feeling weirdly exposed, I hunched my chest a little as he turned to walk away. Then I blurted out, "I heard your phone call just now." He paused, glanced at me, waiting. I was wondering if we could talk for a second. I raised my head, trying to meet his gaze. "Maybe you need a wife." "I wouldn't be a hassle." My voice shook just a little. "A wife who can disappear anytime you say so. I just need $250,000 to buy myself a sliver of freedom." "A deal?" he asked, voice frosty. "What kind of transaction does Miss Bennett want with me?" I was too rattled to notice how he knew my name. "You don't need a wife." I took a breath, forcing myself to hold his stare. "I won't make things messy. I'll help however I can, whatever you need. And if you're done with me, I'll walk away, no questions asked." He stood there under the moonlight, rocking a silver-grey shirt and dark slacks, tall and lean, but solid as hell. Sharp eyes, god-tier features, and a luxury watch on his wrist that could probably buy this whole damn yacht. "What are your terms?" he asked, icy and unreadable. I tensed, cheeks burning, and whispered, "I need $250,000. I kept my head down, couldn't bring myself to look him in the eye. But somehow, with this complete stranger, I felt okay, showing just how weak and helpless I really was. My ex-fiancé broke it off and wants half the dowry back, $250,000. And I can't pay it." I gave a small, bitter laugh. Broken engagement. He looked at me, eyes like glass, cut steel. "Yeah," I nodded, smiling faintly. The sea wind tangled my long hair. I stared into the vast, empty night, eyes full of things I couldn't name. "I've got nowhere else to go, boss," I said, trying to hold on to whatever scraps of confidence I had left. "I accept the deal, but I've got one condition." I looked up at him, totally stunned by what I'd just heard. "Get married in 3 days. Seriously? That fast?" I blurted out. "You already heard my phone call," he replied. "My grandfather's health is declining, and he really wants to see his grandson bring home a wife." He raised an eyebrow at me. "Is that a problem?" I shook my head quickly. "No, not a problem at all." "Then it's settled," he said flatly. The ocean breeze started whipping harder, sending my hair flying into my face. He stepped forward and gently brushed the strands back, tucking them behind my ear. "I'll have someone pick you up the day after tomorrow," he said. "But how do you know where I live?" I asked hesitantly. He didn't answer that one. When he pulled his hand back, I could have sworn his fingers brushed against my cheek. But maybe it was just my imagination. Even after he was long gone, I stood there in a daze, like I was stuck in some surreal dream. That was when Lucas Chen, clearly drunk, came stumbling up and grabbed my wrist. "Claire Bennett, I've been waiting 3 damn years for you to beg me," he slurred, eyes bloodshot. "If you'd just swallowed your pride like all the other women, forget $500,000, I'd drop it to $2 million. "You're drunk, Lucas Chen," I snapped, trying to push him off. But drunk guys are seriously a nightmare to deal with. His gaze locked onto the blazer I was wearing. "Whose jacket is that?" "None of your business," I shot back. "None of my business?" Lucas let out a twisted laugh, his face warped with rage. "Claire Bennett, I want to see which bastard thinks he can touch my woman." He grabbed the blazer and yanked it hard off my shoulders. I tried to hold on to it, but it was useless. The wind howled around us, waves crashing under the moonlight. "Claire Bennett!" Lucas screamed, eyes blazing red. Suddenly, another voice cut through the chaos, sharp and furious. "Claire Bennett! You've crossed the line!" People started whispering all around. "Oh my God! Did she just strip in front of someone else's fiancé? Lucas stared at me, stunned, just as Vanessa Lynn ran up with tears in her eyes and slapped me across the face. "What the hell are you doing?" she screamed. A deep male voice suddenly boomed through the air, silencing everything. Lucas jerked Vanessa's arm mid-slap, pulling her to the side. I panicked, stumbling back, quickly covering my chest with my arms. The sound made the whole crowd spin around to look. Then someone shouted from the back, loud and clear, "It's Mr. Ward Sr. Mr. Ward Sr. Who? Who else could it be? It's Ethan Ward." My eyes widened as I looked past the crowd. And there he was. The same man who'd unbuttoned my dress earlier on the deck. The same man I had boldly asked to marry me. In exchange for $250,000. Ethan Ward barely glanced at me before pulling his gaze away. He quietly said something to the female assistant next to him. She immediately stepped through the crowd, came over to me, and gently placed the blazer back over my shoulders. "Miss Bennett, let me take you somewhere to rest," the assistant said. I nodded stiffly, whispering a thank you, and followed her, though I couldn't stop myself from glancing back. The crowd had quietly parted. Everyone stood still, silent, with this weird kind of respectful tension. "Mr. Ward Sr., this was all a misunderstanding." Lucas Chen's voice sounded much more sober now. He started explaining, cautiously. "A misunderstanding?" Ethan Ward's tone stayed calm, not angry at all, but somehow way more intimidating. I slowed to a stop and stepped off to the side, pressing myself against the corner. The assistant didn't rush me, just waited patiently. Lucas Chen's voice trembled. "Vanessa Lynn is my girlfriend. I think she just misunderstood the situation and overreacted." There was a flash of irritation in Ethan Ward's eyes. "I didn't expect someone in New York's elite to lack basic manners like that," he said. Lucas Chen looked flustered, his face burning red, while Vanessa Lynn looked like she was about to cry. Ethan Ward turned to his men and ordered, "Escort the girl off the yacht." "Vanessa Lynn!" Lucas panicked. She started sobbing, clinging to his sleeve and refusing to let go. Lucas had been in the entertainment world long enough to know exactly how bad this looked. Getting kicked off a yacht in the middle of a high-profile party? That kind of gossip would explode all over New York in a heartbeat. He'd be a laughingstock, done for good. "Mr. Ward Sr., Vanessa Lynn knows she was wrong. Please, give her another chance," Lucas pleaded. Ethan Ward gave him a side glance. "If you want, feel free to leave the yacht with her." Lucas froze, then slowly pulled his hand away. Vanessa Lynn was quickly escorted off the yacht. The rest of the guests quietly dispersed. Everything ended in this eerie, unexpected silence. "Mr. Ward Sr., the assistant's voice brought me back to the moment. I turned around and saw Ethan Ward walking toward me. He gestured for the assistant to leave, then gently asked, "Claire Bennett, are you afraid?" I shook my head. "No, not afraid." "Let me take you somewhere to rest," he said, his fingers lightly brushing my wrist. "Okay?" My mind was spinning, and all I could do was nod and let him lead me away. But after just 2 steps, I felt something oddly cool against my chest and froze in place. Right after that, one of my petal-shaped adhesive bras slipped right out from under the blazer and dropped to the floor. Ethan Ward turned and looked down at the fallen sticker. I was so embarrassed I could have just dropped dead on the spot. But he calmly bent down, picked it up, folded it in half, and slipped it into his pocket. Then he said softly, "It's dirty now. Can't use it again. I'll have someone bring you clean clothes later." My face was burning, bright red, and I mumbled back, "Okay." "Let's go," Ethan said again as he took my hand and led me down a short hallway to a private room. He walked me inside, then excused himself to take care of some business. I sat there in total silence, just staring off, trying to calm down. It took a while, but eventually, my brain caught up. That's when it hit me. At first, he called me Miss Bennet, but later he said Claire Bennet. He knew my name. He knew who I was. His assistant returned, holding a fresh change of clothes. I went to shower, cleaned up, and carefully folded his blazer, planning to get it dry cleaned before giving it back. The woman, maybe in her 30s or 40s, looked sharp and professional. Mr. Ward Sr. said if you want to leave, I'll escort you home, she told me. I nodded, then added, please tell Mr. Ward Sr. I'll dry clean the jacket before returning it. Miss Bennet, that won't be necessary. You can just hand it over, she replied with a polite smile. I didn't argue, just handed over the bag with the blazer. Then, without thinking, I asked, how did Mr. Ward Sr. even know my name? The assistant simply smiled. That's Mr. Ward Sr.'s business. As I stepped off the yacht, my phone suddenly buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Claire Bennet. It's Ethan Ward. Save my number. I stared at the message for a few seconds, then typed back, okay, saved. A moment later, he sent, I'll come pick you up the day after tomorrow. Get some rest till then. He didn't say anything else after that. When I returned to the Bennets' home, it was late, but everyone was still awake. All the lights were on, and the whole house felt heavy, like the air was thick with pressure. The moment my mom saw me, she stood up and snapped, Claire Bennet, have you thought this through? Why would you go and upset Lucas Chen by cancelling the engagement? She's right, Claire, my sister-in-law chimed in. You know perfectly well we rely on the Chens for our business and lifestyle. Now tell us, how are we supposed to come up with $250,000? My sister-in-law is about to have her third child. Do you want this whole family to starve? Everyone took turns scolding me, blaming me for not holding on to Lucas Chen's heart, blaming me for not locking down a marriage that could keep them living large. But when they shoved me into this sacrificial pawn role just to protect the healthy, privileged eldest daughter of the family, did anyone stop to ask if I even wanted it? When they pocketed the $500,000 dowry from the Chens to patch their financial hole, did anyone offer me a single ounce of that benefit? And now, when the Chens wants out of the engagement, they refuse to return a penny, but somehow it's all on me to clean up the mess. Fine then, I'll take responsibility. I said calmly, but once this is over, I will no longer be part of the Bennets. Claire, what are you even saying? My mom snapped, getting up and nudging my shoulder. I've found a way to get the $250,000, I replied. For real? You actually figured it out? Her eyes lit up with hope the second those words left my mouth. It's just... it might damage the Bennets' reputation, I said gently. What do you mean by that? My mom asked, clearly panicking now. I gave a faint smile. Tonight at the party, I met a Mexican businessman. He found out about my situation and offered to help me cover the $250. But he's already married, so I could only agree to be his mistress. I kept going, voice soft like air. I really had no other choice, so I agreed. So what? This means your relationship will go public? How could you do something so shameless? My mum screamed, her voice cracking. The Bennets comes from a long line of scholars. Our ancestors were top civil exam achievers. Claire Bennet, if you become a mistress, you'll ruin the legacy of generations. Someone else jumped in. I replied calmly. Then what do you want me to do? Sell off a piece of the family's property to pay back the Chew's $250,000? Silence. Not a single word. Claire Bennet, my dad finally spoke. We have to repay the Chen's $250,000, but we also can't lose the Bennets' honor. I gave a cold laugh. Then just say I'm not your daughter anymore. My sister-in-law rubbed her pregnant belly and muttered, at least she still knows her place. How about this? My father said. The Bennet family will issue a public statement saying we've severed ties with you, but only on the surface. You'll still be part of the family. I knew perfectly well this was just another one of their sweet-talking tactics. As soon as the $250,000 reached the Chu family, I'd be thrown out without hesitation. But what they didn't know was that's exactly what I wanted. The next morning, at 9 a.m., I got a call from Ethan Ward. "Claire Bennett, check your messages. The money should have been transferred," he said. I quickly opened my phone, and sure enough, the notification showed the funds had arrived 10 minutes ago. "Let's go deal with the engagement cancellation today. I'll have a driver pick you up," he added. "Mr. Ward Sr., can I ask you something?" I said hesitantly. "Go ahead. Could we not let anyone know we're getting married just yet?" I didn't want those greedy leeches in the Bennett family finding out and trying to latch onto Ethan Ward, making a mess of his life. I honestly didn't want him caught in any of that. "You don't want people to know?" he asked. "Not forever, just for now," I replied quickly. "All right," he said. "I'll have someone else pick you up then." Once the $250,000 was paid back to Lucas Chen, and the Bennett family officially announced they were cutting ties with me in the papers, I didn't care if Ethan wanted to keep our marriage a secret or not. Because from now on, with the severed ties made public, the Bennett family had no leverage to bother Ethan Ward ever again. After transferring the funds to Lucas Chen, I saved a copy of the receipt. At the same time, I was reading the official statement from the Bennett family in a printed newspaper, announcing the end of our relationship. I stared at those words for a long time, then took a picture and folded the paper carefully. Just then, my phone rang. Lucas Chen's voice came through, raspy and strained. "Claire Bennett, where did you get that kind of money? $250,000 isn't a small number. The Bennett family definitely couldn't come up with it. Who gave it to you?" "None of that concerns you," I replied. "You've got your money. From now on, we have nothing to do with each other." I was about to hang up when he suddenly called my name. "Claire Bennett, you really think I did all this over $250,000? he asked. "Whatever your reason was, it has nothing to do with me anymore," I said coldly. "Claire Bennett, you should know, if I don't give the word, no man in New York City would dare marry you." Lucas threatened. I let out a quiet laugh over the phone. "Oh, really? If you don't believe me, go ahead and try." I didn't want to waste another second on him, so I ended the call without hesitation. But right after I hung up, my phone started buzzing again. I was about to block the number, until I saw the name flashing on the screen. "Ethan Ward. The Bennetts publicly disowned you," he said. "How do you know that?" I asked, surprised. "Ethan Ward sure has a sharp sense for news," I mumbled. "Claire Bennett." His voice was low and warm. "If it's too much, you don't have to keep pretending you're fine." I hadn't even planned on crying. Really, I was so used to being treated like this my whole life, I'd gone numb. "I'm okay," I told him. "But when someone finally shows they care, it's hard not to break a little." The moment I tried to speak again, my voice cracked. "Ethan, can I cry in front of you?" "Of course," he said gently. "After all, starting tomorrow, I'll be your husband." I couldn't hold back my tears. They just started falling. But before he officially became my husband, I had already given him a different identity. "What kind of identity?" he asked softly. I stayed silent for about half a minute before answering. "Right now, you're a 60-year-old Chinese-Mexican businessman, and I'm your mistress." "Are you mad?" I asked nervously. Over the phone, I heard him sigh lightly. "Claire Bennett, see you tomorrow." "You still want to marry me?" I asked again, unsure and a little shaken. "Get some rest tonight. Tomorrow, wear the most beautiful dress you own," he said, his voice carrying a subtle heaviness. Ethan Ward had clearly prepared everything in advance, so the marriage registration went off without a hitch. After getting the documents, he took me to the hospital. He held my hand the whole time, making us look like the picture-perfect couple. His grandfather was seriously ill, but he still gave me a soft smile, like he was trying to comfort me. Deep down, I couldn't shake the guilt of lying to a dying old man. Someone who clearly loved his brilliant grandson and just wanted to see him settled with a warm family. But he had no idea I wasn't really Ethan Ward's wife. After leaving the hospital, Ethan had a meeting, so he sent the driver to take me home to pack. The driver had been with the Wards for years, practically watching Ethan grow up. Though his hair was snow white, he was still sharp and dignified. The Bennett saw him open the car door for me and immediately assumed he was some powerful backer. Because of the label mistress, no one bothered to ask questions or look twice. I went upstairs to pack my things, and the only one who said anything was my father. "This is just temporary. Go stay somewhere else for a while," he said. "Claire, once this all blows over, we'll bring you back." I pretended to look fragile, asking in a pitiful voice, "Dad, how long will I have to wait?" "That depends on how things go," he replied vaguely. "But Dad, you better keep your word," I whispered. "Of course," he answered, totally ignoring the tone in my voice. As I dragged my suitcase out of the house, I could literally feel the collective sigh of relief from everyone in the Bennett family. "So, I'll stay at my little apartment for a few days, okay? It's closer to downtown, more convenient," I said. "When I get back, I'll come pick you up," he replied. On the third day of Ethan's business trip, an old friend from my volunteer work called and invited me to a small charity auction for the upper class. The theme this time was raising funds for children with congenital heart disease, and I cared deeply about that cause. When I arrived, I noticed several familiar faces, including Vanessa Lynn. She was still dressed to the nines, like always, but she clearly wasn't looking great. Getting kicked off that yacht must have hit her harder than I thought. Vanessa saw me too. She just curled her lips into a frosty little smirk, then leaned towards someone and started whispering. "Did she seriously become someone's mistress?" A soft voice murmured behind me, full of sarcasm. "Obviously. Heard her parents were so ashamed they disowned her in a newspaper. Word is the guy bankrolling her is pushing 80. Might as well be her grandfather. Oh my God, how does someone like that even get invited to a charity event? Right? People like her shouldn't even be allowed at the same event as us." The atmosphere was getting tense. The young socialite who had invited me was visibly uncomfortable now. "Claire, maybe you can join us next time instead," she said, trying to sound polite. I didn't want to make things harder for anyone, so I stood up and quietly excused myself. Just as I reached the door, I unexpectedly ran into Lucas Chen. "Claire Bennett!" he called out. I ignored him and kept walking. Suddenly, Lucas Chen grabbed my wrist tightly. "You came here looking for me, didn't you?" I yanked my hand free. "This has nothing to do with you," I said coldly. "I just heard the news today." Lucas stepped forward again, blocking my path. "Claire Bennett, return the money," he demanded. "And why would I do that?" I let out a bitter laugh. "Wasn't it you who wanted that $250,000 in the first place?" Lucas Chen's expression darkened. He tried to keep his cool, but his voice was tight with frustration. "I told you, all you had to do was lower yourself. Just once." "Lower myself how, exactly?" I pushed him away again. "You mean get on my knees like a dog and thank you for your generosity? How ridiculous." Everyone always thought Lucas Chen, the golden boy of the Chens, was some charming and generous gentleman. But what most people didn't know was that behind closed doors, what he loved most was using money and power to crush others. "My life may not be worth much," I said, my tone icy, "but I will never bow down and let someone humiliate me." "Claire Bennett." Lucas Chen turned serious. "You already have a bad reputation now. You should think carefully about the consequences of your actions." Then, shifting the topic, he emphasized, "You're still young, yet you've already become someone's mistress. You'll never have a shred of dignity left." That was my choice, I replied, steady and unfazed. Claire Bennett, I'm offering you a way out. Really? Well, I don't need it, I said coolly, walking around him. Behind me, his voice dropped. Claire Bennett, this is the only chance I'm giving you. Think it over and come find me. I didn't look back. But that night, I got a call from my landlord, telling me I needed to move out immediately. I didn't argue, just packed a few essentials and headed downstairs. To my surprise, when I got outside, Ethan Ward's car was already waiting for me. The driver stepped out and grabbed my suitcase. Madam, the boss told me to come pick you up. Ethan Ward? He's back already? I asked, caught off guard. The boss is catching the first flight home tomorrow morning, the driver answered. My eyes suddenly stung with heat. His work? He's done already? I murmured. He said he'd be gone a week, but it's only been 4 days. The boss was worried you'd be sad. He couldn't relax. It's fine. His work is more important. He shouldn't mess up anything because of me, I said softly, though my heart was in complete turmoil. Sitting in the car, I couldn't begin to explain the mess of emotions swirling inside me. It felt like I was someone pitiful, tossed aside by the world, and yet, somehow, I had ended up with something priceless. When we arrived at Ethan Ward's place, I had barely stepped into the room when my phone rang. Claire Bennett. Ethan's voice was still a little tired. Suddenly, I felt deeply ashamed. Just to escape from the Bennett family, I had smeared my own name. While he was out there grinding through heavy responsibilities, I was here creating more problems. If I had just stayed quietly at his place, none of this would have happened. Ethan Ward. I'm sorry, I whispered. His voice sounded a bit tired. Claire Bennett, I'm not blaming you. It's fine. I'll be back tomorrow. We'll talk then. After we hung up, I noticed a friend request from Ethan Ward on WhatsApp. I accepted it. There was only one post on his profile, from 3 days ago, a photo of our marriage certificate. I couldn't view all the comments, but I saw 2 replies he'd written to friends. Yeah, we're married. This is my wife, Claire Bennett. That night, I posted just 4 words on my own page. Getting married soon. A bunch of people started messaging me, even calling. But when I answered one of the calls, it was Lucas Chen's voice on the line. So, you've finally come to your senses? He sneered. I told you I'd give you a chance, but I never said I'd marry you. I let out a dry laugh. I never said you were the groom. You're really going to marry that old man? Lucas snapped. Claire Bennett, are you seriously throwing yourself away like that? Becoming some old guy's second wife? I immediately ended the call and blocked his number. That night, my mind was spinning with too many thoughts. I couldn't fall asleep no matter how hard I tried. It wasn't until just before dawn that I finally drifted off for a bit. When I woke up, I saw a figure stepping out of the bathroom. I was so startled I nearly screamed, my heart pounding out of control. It's me, Claire Bennett, came the familiar voice. It was Ethan Ward. I tried to calm my racing heart, but my face had gone pale. Ethan came closer and pulled me into his arms, gently rubbing my back. Just breathe. Relax. It's okay, he whispered. I pressed my hands against his chest, and after a moment, I started to settle down. Once I'd calmed down, I realized I was wearing nothing but a thin silk nightgown. And Ethan had just come out of the shower, wearing only sleep pants, his entire upper body bare. I'm fine now, I mumbled, face blazing red, as I carefully stepped out of his embrace. Sorry for scaring you, Ethan said, brushing a few tangled strands of hair from my face. How come you slept so long? I had a hard time falling asleep last night, I admitted, a little embarrassed. The nightgown was so thin, and I never wore underwear to bed. He had just hugged me like that, and between us, There was only the lightest bit of fabric. My whole face burned, and I instinctively pulled the blanket around myself. But doing that felt weird, like I was trying to hide something. While I sat there, not knowing what to do with myself, Ethan helped me lie back down and pulled the covers up neatly. Get a little more sleep. It's almost noon. When you wake up, we'll have lunch, he said casually. He turned and walked out, leaving me with a huge sigh of relief. During the day, it wasn't so bad. He stayed busy working in his office. But by 9 p.m., when he came into the master bedroom, it didn't look like he planned on leaving. To be honest, I had thought about fulfilling the duties of a wife after getting married. After all, I was the one who said I'd cooperate with whatever he needed. I watched Ethan walk out from the bathroom, hesitated for a long time, then finally asked quietly, "Are you staying here tonight?" Ethan looked at me without saying a word. My heart twisted in knots, wondering, maybe he only needed a wife in name. Maybe I had read too much into it. I hugged my pillow and quietly stepped off the bed. Then I'll sleep in the guest room, I murmured. He still didn't say a word. I clutched the pillow tighter and turned to leave. But just a few steps out, I felt someone wrap their arms tightly around me from behind. "Didn't you say you'd fully cooperate with anything I asked for?" Ethan Ward's warm voice whispered right against my ear. Mr. Ward Sr., I stammered, my back pressed against his firm chest. I could feel his heartbeat pounding steadily, and the heat from his skin was overwhelming. Ethan lowered his head, his hand gently brushing away the tangled strands of hair from my shoulder. "Claire Bennett, you're my wife now," he whispered. I leaned into his arms, eyes fluttering shut, my body turning light and soft as cotton. He lifted me up and laid me gently onto the soft bed. When he leaned down to kiss me, my hands gripped his arm tightly, my heart racing so fast I couldn't breathe. The kiss broke rhythmically, like the air around us had thinned out. "If anything feels uncomfortable, tell me," Ethan murmured, brushing his fingers across my burning cheeks before slowly continuing. There were moments when I truly thought I might run out of air, but he always seemed to know just when to pause, letting me catch my breath. I could feel every muscle in his body trembling, drops of sweat falling from his forehead onto my chest, searing hot. His heart raced, his breathing short and deep. I felt overwhelmed, but somehow he seemed even more overwhelmed than I was. "Claire," he whispered hoarsely, lowering his head to kiss my cheek, asking, "Is it better now?" I shook my head lightly, then nodded, my gaze hazy and unfocused. At some point, my hands had already wrapped around his neck, half pushing, half clinging. In his eyes, I caught a flash of vivid blue light. Just for a second, I had the illusion that Ethan Ward might actually like me. "Claire," he whispered again, leaning down close. When it was all over, I felt myself blank out for a moment, like I had slipped into unconsciousness for 2 seconds. But it wasn't the kind of pain that came with my old illness. It felt more like being carried through clouds, soft and warm, wrapping around my whole body. When Ethan finally called my name and brought me back, he asked, "Claire, are you feeling all right?" I shook my head gently, then slowly reached out and wrapped my arms around his waist. Women often develop a natural attachment to the first man they've been with. He held me in his arms and said, "Rest for a bit, then take a shower." As he spoke, his hand rested gently on my chest. "Does your heart hurt?" he asked. I thought about the moments we'd paused before and whispered, "It's fine." I looked up at him and asked quietly, "Ethan Ward, are you uncomfortable?" He lifted my chin and kissed me softly. His voice was hoarse. "If you keep asking, then yes, I will be uncomfortable." We don't have to anymore," I replied in a whisper. He didn't let go of me, just smiled and said, "I just want to kiss you a little more." I let him. In my hazy thoughts, I realized, every time he called me Claire, his voice sounded almost tender. But he was such a serious man. Maybe he only spoke like that in bed. The next morning, Ethan Ward had already left by the time I woke up. I knew he was busy, being in a position like his, with endless responsibilities. I stayed home, quietly trying not to be a burden. Even without going out, the past few days had felt unusually peaceful. For the first time in 21 years, I felt calm, safe, like I wasn't living in constant fear or chaos. No more worrying about being treated like a bargaining chip by my family. No more pain from favoritism or unfair treatment. I didn't have to think too much anymore. I just did what made me happy. I even sat down at the piano again, after ignoring it for years. I signed up for an online oil painting course and started learning. I felt like I was slowly becoming myself again. One afternoon, Ethan Ward called and said there would be an event that evening, and he wanted me to attend. He'd already arranged a dress and matching jewelry. "The glam team will come by soon to help you get ready," he told me. "Will you be at the event too?" I asked. "I'll pick you up once I finish work," he replied. "What kind of event is it? Is it really necessary to go?" I asked again. "It's a charity gala to raise money for children with congenital heart disease. I thought it might be something you'd care about," he said. Hearing him say that, I couldn't help but feel touched. The last time, when Vanessa Lynn purposely spread rumors about me, I ended up not being able to attend a charity event, also meant to help kids with heart disease. Turns out, Ethan Ward had remembered that. Since I was little, I've had heart issues, so I've always cared deeply about these kinds of causes. I even remembered that after getting engaged to Lucas Chen, I still made time every month to volunteer at St. Mary's Orphanage, visiting kids with illnesses or disabilities. But Lucas Chen used to mock me for it. "Charity work? You're just trying to polish your image," he said with a sneer. "Wow, you really know how to put on a show," he'd laugh. But he never understood. I never did this for recognition. It was because I had lived through pain like that myself, and I just wanted to help kids who had been through the same things. "Ethan Ward, of course I want to go to that charity gala," I replied. "But if you show up with me tonight, people will definitely figure out what's going on between us." I wanted to ask if that would bring him trouble or damage his reputation in any way. From the very beginning, I was the one who wanted to keep this relationship secret. Not once had he asked for that. I gripped my phone tighter, my heart full of questions. Why? Why had he agreed to hide it? Just because I asked? Why had he never tried to deny or downplay our marriage? Why? Was it me? "When you get home, I'll tell you," he said. When I arrived at the event, all eyes immediately turned toward me. What puzzled me was that any gala Ethan Ward attended was always extremely exclusive. The Chens might qualify, but the Bennetts definitely shouldn't be there. And yet, Lucas Chen was present. So was the Bennetts. As I stepped into the venue, I saw them surrounding Lucas with warm enthusiasm. And my own sister, Sophie Bennett, was looking at him with shy, smitten eyes. "Claire Bennett, you really have the nerve to show your face here?" Sophie sneered. Mrs. Bennett's expression darkened as she stepped forward. "Claire Bennett, do you even know what kind of event this is? You come here to embarrass yourself and make people judge the Bennetts?" I looked at the graceful, well-dressed woman standing in front of me and felt absolutely nothing. "Haven't you already published an official statement disowning me? In that case, I have nothing to do with the Bennetts anymore. If I make a fool of myself, it shouldn't affect your precious reputation." "But you still carry the Bennett name," she said firmly. "Everyone in New York City knows you're my daughter." "Then what do you want me to do?" I asked back. "Claire Bennett, leave New York City. Let your sugar daddy take you abroad or send you to Mexico." "Didn't Dad promise I could come back once things calmed down?" I said. She looked at me like I was a fool, voice sharp and bitter. "You're still dreaming? The Bennets already erased your name from the family registry. Is that so? Of course it is. Which meant, legally and by blood ties, I no longer had any connection to the Bennets at all. That's right, I said, turning to look around. Mrs. Bennet had just declared it loud and clear. Surely everyone had heard it. Claire Bennet, you should go now, Sophie Bennet said with fake sweetness. Mr. Chen Jr. is here too. Don't embarrass yourself in front of everyone. Lucas Chen finally spoke up. Claire Bennet, didn't you say you were getting married? Mr. Chen Jr. sneered. That guy in Mexico already has a wife and mistresses all over, like he'd ever actually marry her. So that post you made on social media the other day, it was all fake? I hadn't even replied when Lucas Chen suddenly grabbed my arm. Claire Bennet, I'm asking you one more time. But before he could finish, the entire hall went silent. Mr. Ward Sr. just arrived. Why would Mr. Ward Sr. show up at a small event like this? Who knows, but today's our lucky day, getting to see him in person. Look, he's walking this way. Oh my God, why does he keep looking over here? Maybe hearing the chatter, Sophie Bennet's face turned bright red. Miss Bennet could barely hide her excitement. I turned and looked at Ethan Ward. He was still dressed in his sharp black suit, formal and distant as ever. In that moment, I felt a strange sense of disbelief. This man, the one I'd only ever seen on television or in magazines, was now my husband. He had kissed me countless times. He called me Claire. He'd been so gentle with me, like a picture-perfect husband. Claire, Ethan Ward said aloud. It was the first time he had ever called me by my name in public. Not Claire Bennet in some cold, formal tone, but Claire, soft and familiar. Sophie's smile twisted into something forced. Mrs. Bennet froze in place, and Lucas Chen's expression turned from shock to seething anger. I yanked my arm free from his grip. My eyes were red and every ounce of bottled-up frustration was about to explode. Ethan Ward stepped through the crowd and walked straight toward me. That dress looks beautiful tonight, and your makeup really suits you. You look stunning. I wanted to cry and laugh at the same time. But just as my tears were about to fall, Ethan Ward pulled me into a tight hug in front of everyone. Come on now. I was only a few minutes late, and they already bullied you. As he said the word bullied, his eyes swept coldly across the crowd. Mrs. Bennet's face turned pale, and Sophie Bennet instinctively took a step back. Ethan's gaze finally landed on Lucas Chen. Mr. Chen, what exactly were you saying to my wife just now? The word wife, emphasized by Ethan Ward, dropped like a bomb and sent a wave of gasps through the room. No one could stop themselves from whispering. Lucas Chen looked stunned, like he couldn't believe his ears. Wife? He stuttered. Yes, Ethan replied. Claire Bennet is my wife. The moment those words left his mouth, Mrs. Bennet suddenly snapped out of it. She hurried toward me and grabbed my hand. Claire, silly girl, how could you not tell your mother something so important? I pushed her hand away. Mrs. Bennet, I'm no longer part of the Bennets. Mrs. Bennet froze. Between a mother and daughter, there's no grudge that can't be solved overnight. We just need to talk things out and understand each other, she said gently. I shook my head. There's nothing to talk about. The family registry already proves I'm not part of the Bennets anymore. Mrs. Bennet looked panicked, sweat breaking across her forehead. She turned to Ethan Ward, her eyes full of pleading. Mr. Ward Sr., you saw it too. Claire is just a stubborn kid. She's still upset with me. I stand by my wife, Ethan Ward said, pulling me into his arms, his voice cold. If Claire says she has no connection to the Bennets, then there is no connection. Mrs. Bennet's face turned pale, her expression collapsing into despair. Mrs. Bennet, Ethan suddenly spoke again. To my knowledge, the Bennets hasn't donated a single dollar to charity in all these years. Mrs. Bennet looked stunned. sweat pouring down her face, frozen in place, trying to say something, but no words came out. They've never donated anything. Then why do they keep trying to squeeze into every charity gala? Probably just to show off and chase clout. Utterly shameless. Mrs. Bennett had no choice but to gather herself and leave awkwardly, taking Sophie Bennett with her. Ethan Ward held me close. Claire, let's go home too. But we haven't made our donation for the children yet, I gently reminded him. Ethan bent down and pressed a soft kiss to my forehead. The assistant already handled it, he said. For a moment, I felt like my heart skipped a beat. The room around me blurred, and the familiar breathlessness started creeping in. I clutched his hand tighter, tilting my head to take a deep breath. Ethan Ward, I called out. He lowered his head, resting his forehead gently against mine. Claire, don't worry. I could hear the patience in his voice, but also the weight of it. It made me feel weak, like I wasn't worth the hardship he was willing to take on. Ethan Ward, wouldn't it be better if you married someone healthy? I whispered. His eyes turned more serious than ever. There are plenty of healthy women in the world, but to me, you're the best one, he said. He gently brushed back the damp strands of hair from my forehead. If your health isn't great, we'll treat it step by step. If New York City can't help, we'll go to Boston or Los Angeles. And if that doesn't work, we'll go overseas. What if I still don't get better? I asked softly. Ethan Ward leaned down and kissed me on the lips. Then I'll use this time to reflect, restore, and rebuild, Ethan Ward said. As the new year approached, he finally cleared his schedule. He took me on a trip to Boston. I'd heard that the best cardiac surgeons in the country were based there. When I went in for the tests, I couldn't hide my nerves. All we can do is everything within our power, and leave the rest to fate, I said. Ethan brushed my hair into place with practiced ease. Go ahead, I'll be waiting right here, he said. After all the in-depth examinations, the silver-haired specialist looked at me with a trace of regret. I've reviewed your results, he said. Your congenital heart condition isn't severe. If surgery had been done when you were young, you would have fully recovered by now. I couldn't believe it. I stared at him, shaking my head over and over. Doctor, are you sure there's no mistake? My whole life, my family told me this illness couldn't be treated. They took me to so many hospitals. Every doctor said the same thing. Eventually, I gave up on seeing doctors altogether. I couldn't bear to keep hearing death sentences for my condition. They told me the only option was to care for me with money, carefully, little by little, and that the reason I had survived into adulthood was thanks to their generosity. When Ethan Ward pulled me into his arms, I realized tears were already running down my face. They lied to me, didn't they? Why would they do that? Why would they treat me this way? I choked out. If they didn't want to help, they could have left me, or given me to someone else. Why lie to me for all those years? Claire, don't think about that anymore. What matters now is that you can get better. Do you understand? Ethan said, holding me tighter as if trying to anchor me. I just don't understand, I whispered, my voice fading. Then stop trying to understand, he said softly. Look forward, and don't look back. When spring arrived and the flowers began to bloom, Ethan Ward brought me back to New York City. By then, I had been discharged and was recovering well. A few days earlier, his grandfather had taken a sudden turn for the worse. The hospital even issued a critical condition notice. Ethan had rushed back to New York overnight to handle everything. It wasn't until several days later, when his grandfather's condition stabilized, that Ethan could finally breathe again. We hadn't seen each other for over 2 weeks. When he stepped out of the car, he didn't walk straight toward me. We had made a promise. The next time we saw each other, I would run to him like a healthy woman. He opened his arms wide and I lifted my dress slightly, running down the steps. I ran through a garden glowing with green, carried by the tender spring breeze. For the first time in 21 years, I could run like that. Even the chilly spring wind felt strangely warm. I didn't think at all. I just threw myself into his arms. I looked up, ready to kiss him, but with flat shoes and him being so tall, I had to tiptoe. He leaned down and kissed me back. It had been nearly a year since I married Ethan Ward. But that night was the first time I saw him completely let go. He kissed the scar on my chest, the one left behind after surgery, still visibly raw and not exactly pretty. I instinctively raised my hand to cover it, not wanting him to see. But Ethan Ward wouldn't let me. "Is it really that ugly?" I whispered. "It's beautiful. Just like that night," he said, voice warm. So it turns out, he had noticed me back then already. "Not any later than you thought," he said. "So, you'd seen me even before that?" I asked. "Claire Bennett, are you sure you want to reminisce with your husband right now?" Ethan teased, gripping my hand as he leaned in. "Ethan, I feel a little dizzy. It's hard to breathe," I said nervously. He didn't quite believe me, but still, he stopped. In the heat of the moment, my heartbeat was rapid, but it wasn't the same sharp pain as before. Inside my chest, there was only this uncontrollable fluttering. I wrapped my arms around him, leaned in, and gently bit his chin. "Ethan Ward, from now on, you don't have to worry about my health anymore. Whatever you want to do, just do it." I had seen Ethan Ward in full command mode at regional conferences. I had also seen him lead multinational meetings at the office, switching between English, French, and even Cantonese, flawlessly. At home, he had a casual side, laid back enough that even the house staff joked with him sometimes. But the moment he curled his lips into that subtle smile, the entire room turned to ice. Right now, his eyes were filled with hunger and possessiveness. He let himself fall into the storm of emotions, pulling me with him into a world of raw desire and reckless passion. He seemed even more lost in the moment than I was. There was a time I couldn't understand why the people who were supposed to love me treated me so cruelly. But eventually, I came to realize those 21 years of pain were all leading me to Ethan Ward. "Ethan Ward, was I your first?" I wanted to ask. But before I could finish the question, he already knew. He kissed my ear softly, his warm fingers wrapping around mine. Then I heard his voice, gentle and magnetic. "Claire Bennett, I love you." Ethan's thoughts wandered back in time. At 16, Claire Bennett would spend weekends and holidays volunteering. Most girls that age grew shy as their bodies changed. But Claire had already blossomed, quietly beautiful and poised. Maybe her illness made her naturally reserved, and that kept her a little distant from others. The first time Ethan saw her was when he went to St. Peter's Church with his grandfather to pray. She was volunteering, helping orphans from the Raya home settle into the church choir. When the children began singing, she sat there in a dreamy white dress, playing the piano. After the concert, when everyone gathered for group photos, she should have been standing at the center, but others pushed her off to the side. Still, she didn't fight her way back in or show any frustration. She just quietly stood at the end of the row and smiled. No one noticed that small moment, except Ethan's grandfather, who suddenly whispered, "See that girl on the piano? So young, yet she already knows how to endure." Back then, Ethan found himself glancing at her a few more times. He was 24, driven and focused on building his legacy. His heart didn't stir. All he carried away was a passing impression. That girl in the white dress was truly beautiful. The second time he saw her again was at her engagement party with Lucas Chen. Because his grandfather had ties to the Chen family, Ethan had to attend out of respect. People were whispering about the bride all night long. Some gave her genuine compliments. but plenty were laced with quiet disdain. Sure, Claire Bennett was stunning, but her health was fragile. And while the Chen family certainly wasn't short on wealth, marrying into a family as broken as the Bennets, no matter how lovely she looked, it felt like the Chens were getting the short end of the deal. For some reason, he found himself glancing toward the stage. Claire Bennett was still wearing that elegant white dress, but she looked more like a porcelain doll, beautifully styled, yet lacking life, lacking the spark in her eyes. He suddenly remembered that summer when the children sang like angels and the girl at the piano was soft and serene. Even while standing at the edge of the group, she smiled gently. Her eyes had been so dark, so bright, like glass reflecting light. That image didn't match this version of her, stiff and mechanical on stage. When Lucas Chen leaned down to kiss her, Ethan Ward turned his head away without knowing why. Work had become increasingly demanding, and he rarely thought of the girl he'd only met twice. Now and then, during family gatherings, someone would bring up Claire Bennett. Poor girl. Sold off by the Bennett family and not even respected by Lucas Chen. Yeah, they've been engaged for 2 years and he's never once visited her family. Sounds like that marriage won't last. Then why did Lucas Chen agree to the engagement in the first place? If it was for her beauty, why treat her so coldly afterward? He was standing behind a row of dense pine trees when he instinctively held his breath to listen. I heard from one of the Chen family ladies that he did have some feelings for her in the beginning, which gave the Bennett family the courage to ask for a bigger dowry. Lucas Chen agreed to it too. But apparently, that Bennett girl is fragile and doesn't live very appropriately. No way. I've met Claire Bennett many times. We used to volunteer together. She's a really kind girl. Well, it was her own sister, Sophie Bennett, who let it slip. It can't be completely false. What exactly do you mean by inappropriate? Apparently, when she was around 16 or 17, she was seeing a bunch of boys. And before she got engaged to Lucas Chen, she supposedly met another man at the Langston Hotel. The Bennett family had to pay a lot to bury the scandal until after the engagement. But think about it. Someone as arrogant as Lucas Chen. There's no way he could swallow that kind of humiliation. That's why, after the engagement party, Claire Bennett was sent back to the Bennett family. Lucas Chen had to protect his public image and cover it up. But ever since then, he's hated her deeply. Then why not call off the engagement? Maybe he really did have some feelings for her, which made it hard to let go. But at the same time, he can't get over what Claire Bennett supposedly did. He's clearly torn. Still, I don't believe Claire would do something like that. You mentioned the Langston Hotel. Is there any proof? Someone claims to have seen it. Let me try to find it. She slipped quietly through the bushes. Cousin? What are you doing here? A voice suddenly asked from behind. The girl turned back in surprise. Uncle, she greeted, clearly uneasy. He suddenly stepped out from behind the trees, startling the other girls. They all jumped to their feet, bowing respectfully. But his expression was far from pleased. Have you all finished your studies? Is this how you spend your time, spreading gossip and rumours? He said sternly. The Wards was known for strict discipline, especially when it came to the behaviour of their young women. Some harmless chatter might have been excusable, but what was said today had clearly crossed the line. If the elders heard about this, you'd all be in serious trouble. The girls were so rattled by his scolding that tears welled up in their eyes. He kept reprimanding them until each one swore through sobs they would never gossip again. Only then did he turn and walk away. For days afterward, his mood remained heavy. That weekend, a rare free day brought him to church again with his grandfather. And there, unexpectedly, he saw her again. She was once more in a simple white dress, playing the piano for the children's choir. But now, she looked thinner, and her eyes held a quiet, unspoken sadness. She hit a wrong note, her face pale with embarrassment. The melody came to an awkward halt, Someone walked over and scolded her harshly, without the slightest care. She bowed her head and sat silently, her eyes filled with tears she didn't dare let fall. And yet, she continued playing. Not a single note was off from that moment on. He couldn't stop watching her, thinking to himself, if even one tear falls, I'll walk over to her. But she never cried. As he left, something tugged at his heart, and so he turned back. He went to find the pastor and asked him to deliver a message. You look beautiful in that dress, playing the piano. I hope you can find more happiness. Then, at a high society gala in New York City, one spontaneous decision unraveled into a fate that would last a lifetime. The moment he unfastened the back of her dress, he made up his mind. No matter what it cost him, he would take her away from Lucas Chen and bring her home. What he never expected was that she would be the one to ask to become his wife. His heart was pounding hard, but he tried to sound as calm as possible when laying out his condition. In 3 days we'll register our marriage, she agreed. And just like that, happiness washed over him like he'd been transported back to being a teenage boy again. As he gently tucked a strand of her hair behind her ear, she would never know just how much effort it took for him not to kiss her right then and there. From that day on, they started a brand new chapter. No more chaos, no more pain, just understanding and quiet warmth. Ethan Ward was still as busy as ever, but every glance, every little gesture toward his wife was filled with a patience and tenderness he'd waited years to give. And Claire Bennett, after all those years fighting off judgment, illness, and loneliness, finally learned how to live for herself and opened her heart to a love that fate had gently led her toward. They didn't rush to glamorize their marriage. Instead, they quietly built it brick by brick, with trust, kindness, and mornings spent making tea and reading side by side. Then one day, out of nowhere, joy came knocking. It was a light, rainy day. She'd just planned to swing by the pharmacy for a quick vitamin restock. But as she passed the rapid test counter, a weird thought floated into her mind, like the wind whispering something she couldn't quite hear. The result came up fast, 2 lines. Her hand trembled, her heart pounding like crazy. At that moment, she didn't know if she was happy or just in disbelief. She sat quietly in her car for nearly half an hour, watching the raindrops tap against the windshield, before finally calling Ethan Ward. "Are you busy?" she asked in the softest voice. "No, I'm on my way home," he replied instantly, like he already sensed something. When Ethan Ward stepped into the house, she was standing in the middle of the living room, pregnancy test in hand. His eyes froze, not from surprise, but from emotion. "It's real?" he asked as he walked toward her, staring like something sacred had just entered his world. She nodded, not even getting a word out before he pulled her into his arms. No words, just shaky breaths and a tight, trembling embrace. She looked up, her eyes still red. "What do you think? If it's a boy, or if it's a girl?" Ethan smiled, his gaze warm like a lamp lighting up a dark room. "If it's a boy, I want to name him Noah, because I want him to have faith and be strong enough to get through any storm." He paused, tightening his grip on her hand. "And if it's a girl?" His eyes met hers again, like a second kind of embrace. "I want to name her Lily, because she'll grow up surrounded by love and light, gentle like a spring bloom, and stronger than anyone expects." Claire didn't say a word. She just nodded slowly, and for the first time in her life, her heart felt completely at peace.